Do you struggle with brain fog, a bit of a lack of mental clarity, distraction, overwhelm? This is a topic that we've been diving into a whole lot this month with our clients in the Body Reset program, really looking at focus and cognition. I wanted to take a little bit of time today to talk through some of the key aspects of this because I think this is really relevant to anyone, wherever you are, whatever stage of your health journey you're on, whatever you're sort of working on. And it's a really nice topic to kind of get your head around a little bit and grasp as we get into the new year when you've probably got some goals and whatnot that you want to work on for your health. If you don't know me, I'm Mandy. I am the clinical nutritionist with the Body Reset, and I really want to take you through some kind of practical aspects of what we can do to look after not only your short-term focus but also your long-term brain health and cognition. And I want to ask this question first, and that is, did you even realize that your ability to focus in the short term, how distracted you are, how often you're multitasking, those sorts of things, those short-term kind of uses of our brain actually have a significant impact on the long-term health outcomes and how our brain ages as well. Who would have thought that those two things are really, really intrinsically linked? And what's kind of cool and why this is actually super important is research over the last sort of 12 years or so has really been looking at the impact of distraction on brain health as we have an aging population. And I think this has been dived into a ton in the research because of a few changes that we're all aware of that have happened within social culture and all that over the last few years. You know, we always, pretty much everyone has a mobile device on them, meaning they are contactable at any time of day. They've got apps in there that could be open, meaning they could be contacted or be having kind of distraction points from multiple angles. A lot of us work on computers where we've got email and we've got Slack and we've got all sorts of things open where we can be receiving messages, receiving information that is distracting us from perhaps whatever task we are trying to focus on. And so we're dealing with what is described as an epidemic of distraction, basically, where we're getting better and better at being distracted and scattered and overwhelmed and less able to take our mind and really pinpoint laser focus it on a task. And there's some issues with this. So number one is that basically we get better at being distracted and we get worse at laser focus, and this is a real problem, but it has an impact as well on our fatigue levels. So I want to give you this analogy here to kind of make this make sense before we dive into some ways that we can manage this and mitigate this and work on this for ourselves. Imagine a telescope and you're looking at something, far out into the sky. Perhaps you're focusing on a specific star or something like that, and then you want to move, and so you have to move the telescope and you have to refocus the lenses and all that and get focused on that next thing. And then if you flick back to the original thing, you have to go through that same process again of refocusing the lens and going through that whole process. Now what's lost? Most of the time in that activity is spent refocusing and moving. And this is what we do all the time with tasks that we're doing. We spend so much time moving from task to task and actually very little time spent on the actual task that we're doing. And I reckon that potentially chronic multitaskers are losing up to about 40% of their productivity because of task switching all the time. So not only are we not achieving or not getting as much done as what we could be, which maybe it doesn't matter, maybe it really does. If you've got some goals that you want to work on and you've got a busy life and you don't have time to waste, losing up to 40% of your productivity on the thing you want to achieve can really, really impact the outcomes. But the other part of it is there's a lot of energy burnt in that process. Our brain is an incredibly energy, nutrient hungry organ. It uses up to 20% of our blood flow and our oxygen and our energies, even though it only makes up about 2% of our body weight. So it's really energy demanding, and chronically task switching between things all the time is very fatiguing. And I talk to so many people that are like, I've got such an issue with brain fog, I just really have no mental clarity and I'm just tired all the time. And I think there's so many things that I look at when someone comes to me and says, I've got real issues with fatigue, low energy, etc. We look at, food and movement and sleep and all those things. But I also want to know how they're spending their day. Are they scattered across 100 tasks, trying to do them all and never really achieving anything? And the bigger effect here as well is that this can have a real impact on our mental health as well, because when we're constantly overwhelmed, constantly anxious, constantly trying to get stuff done and never quite meeting the mark or reaching that level that we wanted to, we can start to feel like the problem is us. And actually, the problem might not be us as much as it might be the systems in which we're working trying to achieve the thing. So I want to take you through a couple of the tools that I think can have the biggest impact to improve your focus, improve your mental clarity, improve your energy, but in the long term this has a massive impact on how your brain ages and whatnot as well, because they reckon that the brains of people who are chronically distracted and chronically overwhelmed and whatnot tend to get smaller in areas of emotional regulation and good decision making and all those sorts of things. So it's really important that we protect our brain to be able to do well the things that we need to do with it, so that if we're putting effort into our health so that we can age well, we have a brain that can keep up with our body. So first thing I want to talk about is actually perhaps something a little bit different, but it is time blocking. We talk to all of our clients about time blocking. It is such a useful tool, and basically what I want you to think of is identifying the key thing that you want to get done in, say, a day or a week or a month or a longer term, however you want to break it down, but identify what's important and then block that into your weeks. If nature doesn't like a vacuum. If we don't put something in our calendar, something will fill it for us, or someone will fill it for us. So it's really important that we're actually identifying what those things that we want to achieve are and making sure that we're making time for them in our days and actually kind of spending that time to focus on them. And this is the second part to the time blocking, is it needs to go beyond just putting it into your calendar, and it needs to actually become something that you protect basically and you show up and do. And this does a couple of things. It sends a message to you that you are worth and that you keep your word to yourself. You do the thing you said you were going to do. Training or exercise or a walk is a really good example with this. The sort of thing that maybe we don't deem it as important as something else, or it's not as urgent as something else, and so it very quickly can get shoved off the edge of our life and it doesn't happen. But actually blocking it into your calendar because it's important for your health, it's important for your mental capacity and your space and whatnot, and actually showing up and doing it is a really great thing to actually just improve your focus, give your brain a little bit of space, and from that you can grow that tool of putting things into your day or your week or whatever and making sure they really happen. And this is just a super powerful tool. I could talk about it a lot, but until you actually try with one thing, it's never going to really land just how valuable that tool might be for you. In fact, we've gone to the level of we actually have created our own journals, and we talk about this. All of our clients get a journal when they join the program, and it's a journal that is specially laid out in this way of taking your big long to-do list, which we might never all achieve, and breaking it down into what am I going to do this week, where do those fit into my day, and we can put it into the day, and then you can kind of reflect at the end of the week. And there's pieces in the journal as well that allow you to map that out over a quarter and then also over a year. And there's some reflective tools in there as well to kind of check in on where you're at with things like your energy and your movement and all those sorts of things. So it's a really, really cool journal. Our clients love it. Our coaches use it. We use it. I've actually got a training which I can give you access to, which even if you don't have the journal, you can kind of draw it into your journal and use the same tools. And I think if you want to really improve your focus, improve your productivity, and improve that kind of feeling of scatteredness and whatnot that can be going on in your brain this year, comment journal below. If you are watching this on Facebook, if you're watching it on YouTube, it'll be linked there for you. But we've got a really cool training that takes you through how to use our journal structure, and even if you don't have one, it would be super duper valuable for you. So that's the first one, is journal and time blocking your day, actually making time in your day for you and making sure that you're showing up and doing those things and actually just building that focus muscle, because it is something that we can practice and get better at. And yet so much of our life is kind of designed in a way that we are building our distraction muscle. We're getting better at being distracted and less effective at actually just doing what we said we would do and focusing. The next part that's really important for brain health, mental clarity, brain fog, all those sorts of things, reducing brain fog, is hydration. And the reason for this is that, like I said, your brain's incredibly nutrient hungry. In order for your brain to be fueled well, to focus well, to function well, there's a lot of blood flow that has to get to your brain, and that the crux of that is essentially hydration. So are you drinking enough water? If you're drinking enough water, are you getting enough electrolytes? So there's two key things here. We talk to people, I often see people in two groups. One, there's the people that are chronically dehydrated that just don't drink enough, and they feel better when they start drinking more. The other side of it is the people that actually maybe drink quite a lot of water and they're actually losing and watering down their electrolytes, so to speak, and they'll often feel better at just pulling back on that volume a little bit and adding some electrolytes in. And this can just help that movement of nutrients into and out of your cells so that your cells function better, so that your cells produce more energy, and you get that connectivity of your neurons and your brain cells and all that a whole lot more. So blood flow to the brain, hydration and movement are the two key things we want to look at there. So hydrating well enough and then getting some movement into your day. And this is why going for a walk can be one of the most powerful things you can do to improve your mental clarity. One, it gives you that space in your day, a little bit of white space where there's no stimulation going on, but also it improves the blood flow and movement of blood around in your body and to your brain to provide it with the nutrients it needs to do its thing. The last part that I think perhaps, again, a lot of people might not connect the dots with when it comes to focus. And this one really, really ties into the long-term brain cognition piece. And that is actually blood sugar balance. So in the short term, you probably have felt this when you've had a blood sugar dip and you've got that hangry feeling. You'll probably notice, if you really pay attention in those times, that your focus goes out the window. You're very distractible, you get a little bit more anxious, and you kind of get a little bit obsessed potentially on eating, and you just can't your brain just does not process so well when you get a blood sugar dip. So blood sugar balance is really important for just mental clarity and whatnot on the whole. But at the other end of that high blood sugar, which is what happens over time as our blood sugar dips and dives and gets worse and worse managed as we age. High blood sugar is incredibly damaging to very small blood vessels, and our brain is fed by many, many, many tiny little blood vessels. And if there is fluctuations and spikes in blood sugar that damages these vessels, that can impact transfer of nutrients, transfer of oxygen to cells in our brain, and it can also impact our brain's ability to clean itself and remove debris from neuron processing and whatnot. So when we look at like Alzheimer's and dementia and whatnot, there's usually damage to various areas of the brain and build up of kind of things like plaque and tau tangles and whatnot, and a lot of this can be due to blood flow damage or flushing where the brain can't kind of clean itself and repair itself, specifically at night time. So blood sugar is really, really important, and it's not something we should be messing around with. We want to be making sure that we're eating in a way that our blood sugar is nice and stable, and this could look like increasing our protein, reducing the refined carbs, increasing our fiber and more vegetable content and whatnot, and then also looking at how stress is impacting our blood sugar levels and all of those things as well. So these are the three things. I know they seem quite disjointed. There's kind of the physiological components of where do you fit in your day. Are you jamming in more than can realistically fit? Are you time blocking it in and protecting those time blocks and actually building that focus muscle? Or are you allowing yourself just to be distracted constantly? And look, the truth is, when it comes to multitasking, there's going to be times in our life when we just do have to multitask, and we've got a really clever brain that can do that. But its processing powers are limited despite how amazing we think we are. And if we're constantly demanding that it's always processing all of these different things and task switching, it's going to be incredibly fatiguing and really impact our productivity and output and ability to focus. So actually having some time dedicated into your week where you build the focus muscle essentially, turn off the notifications, shut down all of the different things, and actually spend some time doing just one thing. And if you're not someone who works in, say, a creative or a thinking type role, if you're someone who works perhaps with your hands, maybe this is something that you do in a workout session where you just put your headphones in, listen to some music and turn everything else off and don't check your phone. Or maybe it's something that you do where you sit down and you read a book and you just put your phone away where you can't reach it, so you're not constantly kind of going back to that distraction. Because you'll notice as soon as you start to do something a little bit hard or there's a little bit of boredom, our tendency when we're very practiced at distraction is to go straight to that dopamine hit of check something, look at something, add something new in there. So just building that ability to sharpen our focus and almost skirt the edge of boredom a little bit to teach our brain that it's okay. We don't need to have these constant kind of stimulations and feedback all the time. It's okay just to sit and be quiet and not have these inputs going in. And then obviously blood flow, really, really important. Hydration and movement being the two key components there. And the other part is your blood sugar balance. So this really comes back to what are you eating? How are you eating? How are you spreading that across your day? How are you managing your blood sugar and building a body that can really keep you metabolically healthy for the long term? Because all of those things, even though you don't feel them right now, are having an impact on your ability to focus in the moment, but also your ability to maintain your cognition and your brain health as we age as well. So if you want access to that journal training, it's a really, really good one. I do strongly recommend it. Comment journal, or it'll be linked there on YouTube for you. And I hope you've got something interesting to take away from this, and I will see you next time. Have a great one. Bye.